What's up, everyone? Today we have this Stihl MS310 Goodwill saw. Person's neighbor that I repair their machines for told them about me, brought it over, boom, here it is. He says that he believes the fuel line is rotted off. So, what I did was simple. I opened the fuel, and then I poured said fuel out, which looks like that. This is something you should always do before you bring it to anybody, assuming you don't want to repair it yourself. But look at the fuel, and then took it out. I already put new fuel in it because this is a day in the life of me. Put new fuel in, and then before I did that, I looked at the fuel line and the fuel filter. I replaced the fuel filter. It was actually pretty clean. The only thing that was in there was old fuel. Well, that's fine. I then put the new fuel in, and then I tried to start it. Let me show you how exactly this turned out. I looked at it, did what I said, replaced the fuel. Then I put it on the table. I looked at the air filter, looks brand new. Spark plug, that's a spark plug. It's a little carbony, but outside looks great. It's a used plug, let's just put it that way. And that's it. I looked for the bar oil. It has a little bit. I'm not going to worry too much about that because they don't complain about, like leaks or anything. So I then put in my good fuel, and this is the key part. It has to be good fuel. This is non-ethanol with Echo Red Armor in it. 50-to-1 mix. It's more like 45-to-1. Put it in the machine, and then I did this. Brake is on. Foot securely planted. Is in the run position. First time was choke. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, obviously it turns on, but does it rev up? Does it sputter? Does it smoke? Well, that's a good question. Let's look. It does none of that. Perfectly good working machine now. So I'm generally a nice person. I'm not going to charge a whole lot for this. It did take time. I did have my fuel in it, but that's about it. Just time and fuel. I have no parts, no nothing. So it's going to be very minimal charge. But the amount of time this person took to do this, and then the amount of time I had to spend on it as well, could have been avoided if you just check the fuel. So I'm going to give you a couple things to always check every 2-cycle piece of equipment you have before take it in for repair. First and foremost is the fuel. And I do not care if the fuel that's in there has stable or whatever stabilizer you want to put in there. Do not care. If it's over a few months old, I mean few, 2 or 3, take it out. The only exception is if it's non-ethanol and it's a good quality mixed oil. That's it. If it's a good quality mixed oil, that's fine. Non-ethanol, that's fine. That's the only way. If it's anything else, normal pump gas, take it out. If you now have it removed, put a good fuel in there. If you have a primer bulb, prime it like 30 times. I know the sticker says 5 to 7 or whatever it says. Trust me, you'll be fine. Prime it like 30 times. What that's going to do is it's going to flush out the bad fuel that's in the carburetor, because unless you put it away dry, which I doubt, you're going to have a little bit in there. Now, after you do that, give it a couple pulls. And then at that point in time, if it doesn't work, you can go through the normal thing of checking the air filter, making sure the spark plug is gapped correctly and working correctly, or you can just replace it. It's pretty cheap. Usually you can find them anywhere. And at that point, if it still isn't working, I would then look at your fuel lines, make sure there is a fuel line in there, because what can happen is you can take it off Well, this one's a little hard to see the fuel line, but if you can see the fuel line from the carb going to the tank, but that doesn't mean that the fuel line from the tank into the or connecting to the fuel filter is still intact. It very well could be broken off the very tip of the tank. You don't know. So check that. If it all is good, check the filter. Is it plugged? I would assume not, unless you are literally in the habit of leaving your fuel tank open or your gas can open all the time during a desert storm. It's not going to be a problem. But imagine if you are, you're just careless like that. I'm not judging. Look at the fuel filter. All those are good. Pretty much the final thing you want to check is this. I'm doing this on a chainsaw, but you could do it with any equipment. Check to see if there's compression. Now on a chainsaw, it should hold itself up and slowly move. And it is. That's normal. That's good. If you're a weed eater, if you can pull on it and it literally feels like you're just moving nothing, then maybe you have a blown motor, or more commonly your rings are stuck. And that's usually a cause for repair or replacement. So always make sure that you have a good compression in your motor, because you could check all those other things, but if your motor's bad, there's really no point. It's really hard for a person to look and see if their motor is bad. The dead giveaway is this. Now, stick tuned to the end. I have one steel exclusive that you're going to want to check. But anyway, if you take off your muffler, wherever it is, leaf blower, weed eater, chainsaw, it doesn't matter. All 2 cycles, unless it's a 4 mix, are going to run exactly the same way. They breathe in fuel and oxygen, or air. They suck it underneath the piston. And then when the piston's going down, it forces that fuel up into the top of the piston. And when the piston's coming back up, it compresses that fuel. And then when it comes down, after it ignites, exhaust comes out. So it just does this routinely, all the time, constantly going like that. The problem with, or the good part about that is, it's just a hole in the side of the piston, or the side of the cylinder wall where the exhaust comes out of. There's no valve or anything there to kind of block our view. So if you take off the muffler, you can legitimately see the piston. And if you see the piston and it has like scrapes and gouges, now there will be very fine lines on there. That's completely normal. Those are just marks. It's supposed to be there. We're talking like scrapes. Scrapes are not good. If it's scraped up, it's garbage. You could save yourself a repair bill. Unless you want to go down the avenue where some sentimental value of your machine, whatever you want to get repaired, then go right ahead. But if it's just a normal piece of machinery and it's not that expensive, buy a new one. It's going to be cheaper than having it repaired unless you want to do it yourself. In which case, if you do, check out some of my videos. Shameless plug. Probably have one that can help you out. Having said that, we now know the motor's good. We now know the fuel situation's good. We now know that the motor can retrieve the fuel. And we know that it has a good plug. We know it can breathe. Only other real thing that you can possibly have go wrong is it could have jump time. But to be honest, and that's not really something I'm going to go into. It's so rare. It's not even worth it. If all this comes up clean and you are still having a problem, then 99% of the time, it's going to be a carb rebuild or replacement. If it's a replacement, all you do is look up your model number. On this one, Steel MS 310 carburetor on Google, Amazon, eBay, whatever you want to do. Call up your dealer, call up a local small engine repair shop around you. They might have some available, who knows, or they can order it for you. If you want to repair it, I literally have hundreds of videos about the subject, so watch one of those. But other than that, that should be pretty easy. So I'm going to recap. Check the fuel and replace the fuel if it's over 2 months old. That's non-ethanol fuel, so it's normal pump gas. If the fuel line is good, the spark plug is good, the fuel filter is good, the air filter is good, your piston is not scored, and it still isn't starting, then yes, you might want to take it to a repair shop. But as long as you do all those, you generally could probably fix it. Just the fuel alone fixed this one. You saw a sticker on there, maybe you didn't, I don't know. But the person that took this machine into the repair shop, let me give you a story. The repair shop says it needs new fuel lines, busted, quote him 80 bucks for a fuel line that technically costs, I think, like $5. It's all labor, more or less. So he brought it over to me and said, hey, it needs new fuel lines. I'm like, oh, okay, I have those. That's not a problem. Didn't need fuel lines, just needed fuel. The person tipped it over. In fact, I'll show you exactly what he did, or she. He or she is like, I can do whatever I want, blah, 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 blah. I'm, mastered mechanical person. I know everything, blah, 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 blah. Oh, look, fuel. I don't see a fuel line. Fuel line. Joe, call them and say they need a fuel line. And then Joe calls him, says a fuel line, gives him the price for fuel line, and that's it. Now, they come in, imagine they came in and paid, and what's going to happen? They're going to dump the fuel to replace the fuel line because it's a giant pain if you don't, and then they're going to install the fuel line, and then they're going to, and then it's put new good fuel, and then they're going to let it run, and guess what? It's going to run. And they're going to be like, I told you it was right. So if that sounds like a story you want to live in real life, then go right ahead. Don't check anything and just go ahead and take it to your local shady shop. But if you want to avoid the shady shopness, do this. And then if you do need to take it to a shop, don't take it to the closest one. Google it and find one that has a good review. I cannot tell you. There's about 5 within a reasonable distance from my house. And I can tell you 3 of those 5 are shady. We're talking like that weird shady area from like the Lion King shady. It's nasty. So if you are going to take it, make sure it's a reputable place. But most of the time, unless it's been sitting for a very long time, you're going to get away with just doing this and it's going to run perfectly fine. If it sits for 1 season or a few months with fuel in there, you probably don't need a full rebuild. There are situations you do, don't get me wrong. But if you try this, at least you can help avoid potentially a unneeded rebuild or replacement or whatever it needs. I'm going to go ahead and leave you at that. Follow me on Instagram at SmallEngine101. If you like what you see, put a thumbs up. If this helped you out or if it helped avoid an expensive bill, put a thumbs up because that helps me out as well. If you have any comments, leave a comment below. Any questions, leave a comment below. And I'll see you in the next one. And don't forget to subscribe. Have a good night.